And this is one of the fundamental questions: why we should seek for the Nibbana today, after 2600 years passing of the Buddha. And I told the people in the retreat that in this universe, in this world, there are very few moments of happiness, but the moments of miseries and suffering are countless and immeasurable. And I told them, are you willing to sustain, are you willing to suffer and experience all these things again and again? And I told them, are you willing to play, and are you willing to be yourself in the state of in that sort of fragile state where you are in a life and death state, and you are in a excrement, you are in a left with excrement, lying prone on urine and excrement. Are you willing to entertain that sort of experiences again and again? You will inevitably, if you are being born, and if you're gonna be reborn, you will be playing with that sort of urine and excrement as a child, or as an adult who has completely lost the strength of the whole body, and that body is going to cause so much of suffering. And I told them, are you willing to suffer all that sort of pain, immeasurable pain, because of the organs that are letting you go, and those organs are leaving your body, and you're living in immeasurable suffering? And how about being in such a state of misery where all of a sudden someone is traveling on the road and get crushed by a big lorry, or big bus will simply snatch their life and be in such a violent accident? Or are you willing to be a meal for somebody's dinner, like a goat and sheep, or be a pig and be their food? Yeah. Or even Buddha tells in some bhikkhus that this is how you were in your past life, and are you willing to be in that state and again? And that's how those bhikkhus, they suddenly become awakened, and they lost all the taints, and they become arhats, those 60 bhikkhus. So what I'm saying is that these sort of things, imagine, that sort of things are inevitable. So for example, the being like maggots and worms that are being spreading around the dead body, and kind of being fed, being a feed, some sort of food for the birds and animals. Yeah. So this is the state of world. I mean, universe. There's nothing we can do to avoid being into that states. So these suffering are immeasurable, and we are lucky that we are in human state, and we have not uh, been able to. We have not had to go through that sort of misery. Imagine you have lost your ability to be in the human state, and somehow you end up being in that sort of destiny of being reborn in some miserable realm. That sort of suffering is immeasurable, and this is why we're gonna get into that state, because our mind is being constantly being kind of the so, so swept by the current of praticca samutpada. So I consider, I give that praticca samutpada as a flow, as a current that is sweeping us all the time. From the time immemorable, the links of dependence is like a current of a water, of a river, that are keeping us sweeping on in this samsara forever. We have no way of getting out of this current, and because of this praticca samutpada, we are in this samsara forever, and we have no way of avoiding being that state of being food for some sort of animals, being food for some sort of birds, and some sort of being in that sort of being a maggot, and worms, and being in the dead body, in being a food for somebody's dinner, be some sort of animal, and these are all the miseries. This state of misery we cannot avoid. So the quest for Nibbana is, there is a very good reason, there is very good justification for us to seek the state of Nibbana, because all these states are unavoidable. Whatever we do, whatever state of the samsara we are in, we have no control over how we can avoid this sort of mishaps. So what is this state of Nibbana? And that this state of Nibbana is a complete freedom from the whole universe and from the whole cosmos, from the whole state of conditioned realm. Yeah. So the state of Nibbana is being freed from all these sort of conditions, the condition of praticca samutpada, the being freed from the current of praticca samutpada, being totally free from the birth, from being freed from birth, death, being freed from illness, being freed from the suffering, the pain, the grief, being freed from the state of hunger, the state of anxiety, the state of hatred, the state of being poked around from different sword or knives and sort of metals and some sort of all these sort of things, the being cut down by all this sort of all this sort of heavy sort of metals and sort of swords and all that sort of things, being burned into the fire, being fallen from a cliff and sort of and being crushed by a lorry or from by a landslide, and being losing all these organs and being in immeasurable pain. These are all the state of suffering we cannot avoid as long as we are in the samsara. Yeah. And this is the state that we have no control over, because we have not let go of the conditions. So as long as we are in this conditioned realm because of this praticca samutpada, we will inevitably have to suffer that. And the state of Nibbana is freedom from all these sort of conditioned phenomena, where the notion of space and time will disappear. The time and space will disappear, and all is freedom from space and time, freedom from four great elements. All this is the state of Nibbana, where all this notion of space and time and the elements will disappear. The state of feeling, the perception, the consciousness, all this whole thing disappear. Yeah, the state of Nibbana is that all these links are actually the suffering. Yeah, they are inevitably, they have got a nature of arising and ceasing, and whatever has got a nature of arising and ceasing, they are impermanent. They do not have they do not give any lasting happiness. And the state of Nibbana is the state of being all the sort of arising and ceasing to be not to be subject to arising and ceasing. Yep. And what sort of experience they will remain in the state of Nibbana? This is peaceful, this is sublime. Namely, the stilling of all the formation, the relinquishment of all the acquisition, destruction of craving, dispassion, cessation, Nibbana. Okay, I have already explained that, and I do not spend much time on what this is, but this is the you can take a glimpse of what this state of Nibbana would be by just looking at one of the jhanas and observing the jhanas and seeing their nature, and see how the suffering arises, how they cease, and what is the cessation of suffering, by just observing the glimpse of the jhana. Yeah, for just a temporary moment, and you can see that how Nibbana might look like, how Nibbana might feel like. And these the practice of tranquil wisdom inside meditation, by doing the siksar, will take us all the way up to the state of destruction, or complete destruction of the taints, to be taintless, completely cravingless, and this is where we are heading to. And there is nothing for us to be apprehensive, to be afraid of, to be kind of excited about this sort of state. This is state where all the excitement ceases, where all the anticipation ceases, where all the kind of joy ceases, where all this kind of notion of consciousness and that's namarupa and everything ceases. So this is a state of no concept, no feeling, no perception, no awareness. It's just one experience that is this is peaceful, this is sublime. Namely the stealing all the formation, the relinquishment of all acquisition, destruction of craving, dispassion, cessation, Nibbana.